Welcome to Phails. My name is Philip Jones, and today my guest is Karlie Lemos. She is the co-owner of Studio Satya and a yoga teacher. Wave to everybody, Karlie.
Hello.
Yeah. Today, Phil fails at yoga philosophy. I think I've been in my mind most of my life.
I think that's common.
Yeah. And a part of my seeking has been returning to my body or having a greater comfort in my body, awareness of my body. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people will come to class and I will check in with them, how's your day going? Or, is there anything you want to work on today? And I'm just having a recent memory of someone saying, oh, I've just been sitting in front of a computer and I need to move away from that. And I said, get into your body. And he was like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to talk about your life story,
Okay.
Karlie's life story. And we begin those with kind of the beginning where you were born.
I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Ooh, Corpus
and
Christi.
I was raised there as well.
You were. Corpus Christi, Texas, for everybody, is on the Gulf of Mexico.
It is. Yeah, I was a beach girl for many years. I think I've lived here so long that I would no longer identify that way, but
You were a beach girl?
mm-hmm.
What does a beach girl do? What is that?
Hangs out at the beach.
You just at the beach. You like sunning, tanning?
Well, after I moved here, I had a really hard time with being landlocked.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up moving back to the Pacific Coast for a couple of years. And then moved back here and I've been here ever since. So no longer really identify with that part of myself. Or, I mean, of course I do, but, I don't think of myself as like a beach person anymore. But for a long time, that was like a big part of my world.
My relationship to Corpus Christi is pretty regularly I'll go and camp out on the Padre Island National Seashore, which is you just drive to Corpus Christi and then you take a right when the land stops.
I've never actually done that. I've never actually slept, camped.
Really?
Well, I have, but not in Corpus.
Okay. What kind of family were you born into? How many siblings? What was it like?
I'm an only child.
Okay.
Which, I don't know. Some people love being an only child. I didn't necessarily love it. And then I never necessarily wanted to have kids, but then I said, like, if I do have kids, I'm not going to have only one because I don't want my kid to have the only child experience. And guess what? I have an only child.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was just me and my parents, and my parents eventually got divorced, and then it was me and my mom.
How old were you when they got divorced?
They separated when I was around 10, so that like between 10 and 11 was when my dad left, and then around like 11, 12, they were, formally divorced.
Did you have any memories of before the divorce?
Oh, yeah.
What was it like?
I mean, I think I have all kinds of memories, like both good and bad. I think like my parents really tried to give me a really great childhood. And for the most part, I think they did a good job with like the resources that they had. But also I think that my parents were not really co-parenting. Like they were just sort of each parenting from their own perspective and like whatever patterns they had received growing up.
Yeah.
And that was hard.
Yeah. Do you have an idea or can you talk about the different patterns? Like what did it look like?
Well, my mom was like, she wasn't fully permissive by any means, but she was like kind of leaning that direction because it was like, she didn't always like, she would like set a boundary, but she didn't always hold it type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas like with my daughter, like we're not moving that boundary. Sorry, kid.
Yeah.
No matter what. And then my dad was kind of the opposite, like more authoritarian. So that just felt confusing. And I think I developed some insecurity around kind of the way that evolved.
Yeah. Your mom would set boundaries that were easy for you to cross. And your dad was like a disciplinarian,
Yes.
authoritarian. And they were probably, I could see that those being at odds.
Yeah, so that was kind of hard. And also, I feel like I had a pretty happy, healthy childhood at the same time.
Yeah.
Both, you know.
Was there any kind of like violence or any kind of like, or like what did discipline look like? Or was there any trauma that you remember?
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about
Yeah,
that, but yes.
there was.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people had it. I did. What were times of love and fun and play look like when you were a kiddo with your family?
Uh, when I think about like when my parents were married and us being all together, it's really hard for me to remember having fun as a family. Like, I
Really?
remember having fun by myself or with my friends or even my family, like my cousins,
Mm-hmm.
or my grandparents,
Hmm.
but not so much my parents. I don't know why that is. Um, like, I would like to think that the experiences that my daughter is having right now, she will remember as like, because we do a lot of things together as a family that I think are really fun. So I'm hoping that she'll reflect back to that as well. I mean, we must have, but I just, for whatever reason, I don't really have a lot of like fun family memories. Maybe it was because the divorce was really hard on me. And so maybe I just kind of forgot those times.
Yeah. Well, we have kind of a negativity bias as just humans in general. The bad things,
Right.
they're bigger in our mind and more memorable than the good things.
Yeah.
Hmm. Were you lonely?
Yes. Yeah. Not a lot. But yeah, but I think, I mean, I haven't had this conversation with very many only children, but I think Holly's an only child as well. But um, I see that in my daughter, the loneliness.
Hmm. What's it look like? How do you see it?
She wants to play, and we play with her, but obviously we're not going to play with her all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
even still, it's like even if we do, she doesn't want to play with us. She wants to play with a friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can see like she'll act out or like something, and I think that's where it's coming from.
Yeah. Wanting companionship.
Yes, that's a good way of, yeah, companionship is a good word. And I definitely felt that way as a little girl, like just kind of lonely. And
Is
yeah,
that why you wanted to have two kids?
well, I didn't really want to have kids.
Oh,
And
you
that's
didn't want
how
to have kids.
but I changed my mind. But then that's how I ended up with only one, because I had changed my mind. Then it was just kind of, that's how things unfolded.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, when I was like, if I decide to have kids, I'll have two. That was why. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you identify when you were a kiddo? Like,
Uh,
what kind of kiddo were you?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever really thought about that. I think I was probably pretty bright and energetic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I was a little bit scared of my dad, and then maybe kind of like leaned into the unconditional love that my mom provided.
Mm. Yeah. Hmm. Were you precocious? Did you like talk to people a bunch like other adults?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously there's a personality component,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I think that comes along with being an only child.
Oh, it is.
I mean, not if you don't have
Well,
the
because
personality to go with it,
you're
but
seeking connection
right.
outside of the family dynamic.
Yes. If you do have the personality that goes with it, then I think those things go hand in hand.
Yeah. Because you're longing for connection and communication and like interaction. So wherever it is, you're like a sponge,
right?
soaking it
Exactly.
up. Goodness. Okay. What happened? What was it like after the divorce? You were with your mom.
I got really angry.
You did.
Yeah.
You felt anger.
Mm-hmm. But I was too young to even recognize that I was angry.
How did it express?
I mean, I was just kind of like moody, I think. And like sometimes, and this is something I didn't realize until I was like in my 30s, looking back, I think sometimes I would isolate myself. Like there would be social situations where I could go be with friends, but I wouldn't.
Hmm.
I would hang out with my mom instead.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. Anxiety, probably.
Did you do drugs and alcohol?
Not at that point. Later I did, as
Later.
a young adult, but
Yeah.
not as a kid.
No.
No, I was a pretty good kid.
You're a good kid.
I made good grades.
You made good grades?
Yeah.
You were quiet in class?
No, I got in trouble for talking a lot.
Tell me about it.
I don't think I had much self-control.
You didn't have a lot of self-control?
I don't think so.
Impulsive?
Maybe, I mean, I know what an impulsive child looks like, and I'm not sure. Maybe because of the discipline at home, I was suppressing some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that could be. Yeah, that could be. I hadn't really thought about it that way because I think of like the other behaviors that go along with impulsiveness. But
yeah.
But as an adult, I have like almost no impulsive behaviors.
No.
Yeah.
None?
I mean, of course, but I'm just not an impulsive person.
You're not.
But for whatever reason, as a kid, I like could not stop talking.
You wanted to talk. Well, you wanted to talk.
Yeah.
You wanted connection. Oh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful thing. But the teachers probably didn't prefer it.
No, they did not.
No, they wanted you to stay on task.
Yeah.
We need you to be a good bean counter later on.
For sure.
Industry worker.
And I remember like in middle school, not all the time, but occasionally like doing like sort of trying to entertain my classmates, like sort of like a stand-up bit.
Really?
Yeah. And then the teacher would come in and I would have to like shut it down. Or I would like keep trying to do it like from my seat and then I'd get in trouble.
You were a performer from a young age.
I am. Yeah. I've always been sort of a performer. I've never really been I've never really like pursued it to any large degree, but yeah, I've always performed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You made good grades. Did you go see the principal a bunch?
That wasn't really a thing, but I would get sent out of class.
Mm-hmm. Just get out of here.
Yeah. Get out of here with your disruptive behavior.
Get out of here. But you're goofing off.
Yeah.
Were you the class clown?
No.
Not the class clown.
No, I think I had moments of that, but no.
But mostly just class socializer.
Yeah.
It was a social component.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Like gossip? What were you getting into?
I don't know what I was talking about. I mean, what could a little kid have so much? I mean, I see it in my own kid, but I don't know.
Do you remember?
No, I really don't.
You were writing notes?
That was high school. So in high school, I eventually stopped talking to a degree, but then I started writing notes. Yeah.
Passing them notes.
Yeah. Which I think the teachers just ignored. I don't think they had any will to like stop it.
Because it didn't have it wasn't as.
It was quiet.
Yeah, it was quiet. It was quiet.
I definitely sat at my high school desk, like writing an entire notebook paper page to my friends.
I remember my first album I ever purchased was the Beastie Boys' License to Ill.
Mm-hmm.
And I memorized that stuff. And I would sing it on the playground. I would do the whole thing. Paul Revere, whole thing. Did you do anything like that? I guess I had a little performer in me too.
No, I did used to write song lyrics down though. Like when a song would get stuck in my head, that was one of the ways that I would try to get the song out, was I would write out all the lyrics.
Mm-hmm. What songs?
I'm not sure. That was in high school, so who knows? It could have been anything. I do remember, for whatever reason, this just popped into my head, R.E.M's Man in the Moon.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember writing that one down.
If you believe they put a man on the moon.
Man on the moon.
Yeah. That's a good song. I like R.E.M. I still remember when that Time Out or We're Losing My Religion came out. That was good stuff.
Yeah, that was a good record.
Good record. Sure. Was it called Time Out?
No.
Something. R.E.M. fans, put it in the comments.
I can't remember, but not Time Out.
Yeah, it was something. But it was a good album. I thought R.E.M. was really good. Were you, what groups did you identify? Or were you like a chameleon?
I was a little bit, because I kind of ran with the like skateboard punk rock scene, but I danced.
Outcast.
I was a dancer. So I was like with the other girls that danced, you know.
Dance? What was dance? Dance isn't cheerleaders though.
No, it's like performance, like dance.
Okay.
But I also hung out with like the kids. Well, there were boys who skateboarded. None of the girls skateboarded. I tried briefly and it got hurt. And I was like, I don't want to get hurt.
No, you don't want to get hurt.
But there were only dudes that skateboarded. But the girl, well, some of me and my friends would hang out with them.
Those are kind of the outcasts, right?
Kind of. There was levels of outcasts at my high school.
Really?
I think I wouldn't say outcasts so much as like misfits.
Misfits.
Yeah.
Were the skateboard kids the misfits?
I think, yeah. I don't say they were outcasts so much as misfits. Maybe a little bit outcast, but.
So you had a rebel streak.
Yeah.
You wanted to hang out with bad boys. It's like they roll around on little blocks of wood. They're bad boys. It's so silly when I think about it now. They're rolling around
on little blocks of wood.
They're rolling around on wood.
They're coming to school on off hours.
Oh
and
my
using
God.
the rails on the stairs.
Yeah, they're coming to school and exercising around the school when school's not in session. Bad boys. We got to crack down on that. We don't want to be having them at school exercising.
Doing something healthy.
Doing something healthy. Congregating. They might have smoked weed, though. Did they smoke weed?
Yeah, I didn't.
No,
it was
you-
around, and I just wasn't interested. I didn't do it until I was older.
Yeah.
But it was around for sure.
Yeah, it was around Corpus Christi. What was Corpus Christi like growing up in
You
Beach
know,
Town?
Yeah, I was there until I was 19. So I have like a little bit of a perspective of like being a young adult there. And then like visiting my mom, when I was in college. And I don't go there very often now, but like my perspective as an adult is like it's like not really a great place to hang out. On the one hand, the other hand, I feel like it was a pretty good place to grow up.
Really? Why? Or how?
I feel like I had a decent education and I made some really good friends, and it's cool to grow up on the beach. It really shaped a lot of who I am, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Beach hanging is almost like meditating. To sit there and beach is, what do you do? You're not doing anything.
You don't do anything.
You don't do anything.
There's nothing to do unless you're a surfer.
You watch the ocean and
Which
you hear
I
the
didn't
sounds.
surf until I lived on the Pacific. So when I was growing up, I did not surf. I had a couple of friends that surfed, but like,
You would chill on the beach.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. And I wasn't like drinking or anything when I was a kid. So yeah, you're literally just chilling. And
You're
then in high
meditating.
school, there were like bonfires that would happen, but
Well, that's just another type of chilling.
yeah,
Instead of looking at the ocean, you're looking at the flames.
right.
Okay. I think that'd be cool. When I think of Corpus Christi, I think of kind of more of a blue collar city, but I might be wrong on that.
I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah. Compared to like Galveston.
Right.
Because it's like a city. People live
It
there
is
and
a
work
city.
jobs.
People like that don't know anything about it. They'll be like, "Oh, it's a small town." No, it's not. It's a city.
Yeah. It's a
And
proper
my high
city.
school was huge.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you made A's? And B's?
Yeah. I mean, not all A's, but yeah, I did well.
Yeah. Did you skip school?
Not really. My senior year, I didn't have a lot of academic work to do. And
What? Because you were done it all?
I had done it all.
You
Not
did it?
literally, but I had done a lot of it. Like I
Yeah.
could have graduated early if I really wanted to.
But you didn't want to.
No, wasn't interested. But so there were a few times where we like went to the beach instead of going to school, but that wasn't like a common thing. I didn't really skip school.
Yeah. Did you sneak out of the house?
No.
No.
Once
sneaking.
I tried with my stepsister, and we got caught. but
So your
that's it.
mom remarried?
My dad did.
Oh, your dad remarried?
Yeah.
Did
Not
did
my-
both your parents? What was divorce life like for you?
You mean like the frequency of like
Yeah,
staying?
like going back and forth from house to house.
I went to my dad's house every other weekend.
Okay. He had like standard visitation.
Hmm. Yeah.
Did you like being there, or did you prefer being at your mom's?
I preferred being at my mom's. Yeah.
Okay. Your dad remarried?
He did.
Did you like those kiddos?
Yeah, I mean, my stepbrother was a little older. Like now he's like a peer, but back then he seemed a lot older.
Mhm.
So I didn't really know him, but I liked my stepsister a lot. But she also wasn't there because her parents were divorced. So sometimes she would be with her dad,
Yeah, and him being a more disciplinarian and maybe more scary for a kiddo, you wouldn't want to be there.
Sometimes it felt that way.
You'd rather be at your mom's where you got away with stuff.
Well, and
Minimal
I
boundaries. You're like, I want
also
to be at the boundaryless house.
I also had like my own space. Like I didn't really have like my own proper room at my dad's house.
That makes sense.
Whereas like everything at my mom's house was mine.
Yeah.
You know?
It felt like your home
Yeah.
more than at your dad's.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Part of me is like learning about you, and then also part of me is always figuring out how to be the best single dad I can be for my daughters. Because they, at 13 and 16, want to be at their mom's more. I've always had 50-50, and recently we changed to a standard, which has been really sad. I've felt a lot of sadness, or sadness has been present.
Yeah.
Because I want them in my life. So then I start to think, well, what's going on with me or with the way I connect with them? So
it's probably just comfort, you know, the comfort of like being with mom, you know.
It probably is. Mom's mom.
Yeah.
I can't make mom. I can't be mom. I don't know how. I mean, it's definitely not a wig.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a clothing. You don't put on mom attire. There's something about mom
you
that
just got to have that baby in your body, and that's the only that's the only way you can be a mom.
Yeah, I have to have birthed this baby.
Yeah.
But also her vibe, like I think their mom is really cool and really nurturing, and
my mom was incredibly nurturing. So I think that was part of it too. Is just
that feels good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to have that. I want my kids. I don't want to be a disciplinarian, like strict person, and I have that because I was raised with that.
Yeah,
I had those.
I think a lot of people our generation were raised that way.
Yeah, those like strict, like real. I call it the cycle of violence. It like there wasn't a lot of like. I remember parents saying kids were seen and not heard. That was said when I was a kiddo.
I didn't hear that. Actually, I did hear it, but it wasn't. I did hear it. Yeah. But it wasn't like something that was like a rule
in your house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it was in my house. It was like, I'm glad things are changing.
It's really wild. Like I have a lot of hope for the current generation. Like when I think about the way that we're raising my daughter and the way that a lot of my friends are raising their children.
Yeah.
It's really wild to see the shift. But also, I mean, I think like our parents didn't have a lot of resources for parenting.
Social and emotional learning wasn't a thing when we were kids.
And like the books that were available were few and they were like shitty. Whereas now the resources are like endless.
Yes. Yes. I think the arc of time bends towards progress.
Right. Yeah.
In parenting and relationships between kids and parents.
So much evolution.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for that.
Me too.
Like I really want to stop something and start something anew.
Yeah. And I don't know, but I feel like it's happening.
Yeah.
And I say that and then I have a memory of like seeing a family out in public recently and how with that family it was clearly not happening, but I would like to think that it's happening largely.
I think well, the more of us that do it, the more models there'll be,
right?
The more
I mean, yeah, that's the thing is like I see some of the ways that my kid behaves and it's kind of like standard, like, you know, we grew up with like bullies, like that's not a thing.
Yeah, well, it still is a thing.
But it's not accepted.
Kids get bullied in different ways. Yeah,
it's not acceptable. Definitely like
systems. Yeah, they're like.
Whereas, like in our generation, if kids were bullies, it was just like whatever.
Yeah, well, that's just Craig.
Life. Well, yeah, exactly.
That's just Paul. You know, you give him your lunch money and
move on with your life. Yeah, yeah. Whereas, like. Just even little things. I mentioned this to someone the other day. Like, you know, we went to dinner with like my friend's daughter and we're leaving the restaurant. She tripped on the like curb. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and this is what kids do nowadays. I think I see it happen. She walks up to her and she's like, "Are you okay?" And like, you know, and see if she needs help getting up, which is so sweet. But like, I didn't do that. If my friend fell when I was a kid, I was just like, bye. Keep on playing my game.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some amount of like awareness of other people's struggles and wanting to relieve or support.
Yeah. And like true empathy
True
that
empathy.
I did not have at 5 years old.
Compassion and empathy.
You know?
We need that. We need that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting a little bit of that. I know I am, as a 47-year-old man. That's been a part of my journey, is like how to nurture that in myself for a lot of reasons, because it wasn't available when I was a kid.
Right.
There just weren't those models. There weren't those. I was a stoner, and I still remember my calculus teacher being, but I was I was smart. So I took more advanced classes, and I remember my calculus teacher being like, asking if I could go to the bathroom because I would go smoke weed. She's like, just go. You don't even have to come back. Like, I don't even care. Just like this lack of, I don't know, lack of
interest and support.
Yeah. Just get out of here. You not being here will make my life easier. So that's easier than supporting and giving compassion, or even asking like, what's going on for
Yeah,
you?
even like checking in.
Yeah. A check-in.
Although, to be fair, I did have a high school teacher that tried checking in with me one time, and I wouldn't talk to her. So
You wouldn't?
No.
I had a high school teacher, Mr. Richards. He was the one crazy one that was like, Philip's a good kid, because I get a lot of messaging from a lot of other teachers that, wasn't good. Did you have friends, teachers that would befriend you? Did you have like good relationships with teachers?
Yeah. Yeah. There were a couple for sure.
Yeah.
There were some really good teachers at my high school.
There were?
Yeah.
Corpus Christi had good schools.
I mean, I don't know, but my experience was pretty good.
Yeah. And what happened after high school for you?
I went to school there for a year.
What school was in?
Texas A&M.
Okay, Texas A&M.
And then I transferred to, now I'm going to date myself, Southwest Texas State University.
Southwest Texas State
University.
Which
Texas
is
State.
San Marcos.
Yeah. But
Texas
I lived
State.
here, so I commuted from
You lived
here.
in Austin.
I moved here, but I transferred to school.
She wants to make that clear, everybody. She lived in Austin, not in San Marcos.
No, I mean, San Marcos is great. That's just the choice that I made.
Mm-hmm. That's a long commute.
I didn't usually drive. There was a commuter bus, and I usually took the commuter bus.
That's cool.
Sometimes I carpooled, but...
What'd you study?
Interdisciplinary studies and English and science a little bit. I used to teach school.
You're a teacher?
I got my teaching certificate my last year. Was it year or semester? I think it was year of undergrad of college.
What did you teach?
Elementary school, mostly 4th grade.
Oh my goodness. What brought you to that?
I think that I probably could have benefited from a little bit of time prior to college. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to study or what I wanted to do, but I was being told by my mom that I had to go to college, and that was like the thing to do. So I did. And I didn't have a plan, and I didn't have any like clarity about what I wanted to study, but I knew that I liked kids and that I was good with them.
Mm-hmm.
Which ironically now I have no interest in working with kids, but it's probably because I have my own. But I just kind of ended up like, I was like, well, I know like teaching is something that has always felt really natural and comfortable to me, like my whole life. I do feel like I am to some degree like called to be in the seat of the teacher, like regardless of what that might look like. And that I knew, I kind of felt that in my heart. And so, yeah, I just was like, well, I guess I'll teach school. And it went well and I was good at it, but it just wasn't really something that I wanted to continue pursuing.
You would have liked a gap year.
I mean, again, like hindsight, like when I look back, I think that might have been helpful. Like, I think I might have...
some life experience.
Yeah, I might have benefited from getting to know myself a little bit better.
You could have honed in on what you wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And better utilize that time.
Yeah, exactly. Better utilize that time.
What was your first job?
Baskin Robbins.
You were a Baskin Robbins employee.
Mm-hmm.
You were an ice cream artist.
Yeah. It's an ice
cream
artist.
has me thinking about everything, but he's an artist. Sandwich artist. Anyway, Baskin Robbins. Did you work in restaurants a bunch? Were you ever a waiter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I did after Baskin Robbins.
Yeah?
Yeah.
At Applebee's?
Close. I don't
Chili's?
know.
No.
I don't know if anyone will know this restaurant because I don't think they exist anymore. But it's kind of like Applebee's at the Black Eyed Pea.
Oh yeah, Black Eyed Pea. I know the Black Eyed Pea.
Yep,
Yeah,
I
they're
worked
still aren't they
there.
still around? Who
I
knows?
don't know.
Who knows?
And then I moved here and I worked at Shady Grove, RIP.
R.I.P. Shady Grove. That was on
Yep.
Barton Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just a derelict.
Just tagged and
Yeah, it's just like
looks
a derelict
crazy.
property.
Like,
I'm
yeah.
surprised no one's going in there.
Probably no one can afford it.
Probably. But it can afford to sit empty, which makes no sense. Yeah, Shady Grove. So you're a waiter. I did that for a long time. And then what shook you out of the teaching role?
I sort of felt like I was fully in the grind. And I had this realization that if I kept going, like I was gonna just do the like American thing that you're supposed to do, which is like buy a house and settle down. And I wasn't interested in settling down, but I also was like, if I keep moving on this path, like what else am I gonna do? Like I don't know what else I'm gonna do. Like teaching school, you kind of have to settle down. Like there's no.
You
That's
didn't
how
want
it
to
felt.
you didn't want to settle down.
I just wasn't interested.
You weren't ready.
No, I wasn't ready, and I had already been doing it for a long time, and I was so young, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the thing. Was like, well, I like my job on the one hand. The other hand, I feel like I'm working constantly, and why? Like, if I'm not going to do that, if I'm not going to like get married or not necessarily get married, but like buy a house and so do those things that are conventional,
right?
Then why am I working so hard? That was just kind of where I got to. And yeah, so I left. I ended up moving to Mexico for a couple years.
Ooh, where in Mexico?
Puerto Escondido, Oaxaca.
Oh yeah, I've been to Puerto Escondido and Puerto Angel and Mazunte.
Yeah, over there.
I've been all over there.
I traveled for a while and then I settled there and worked there for a while.
What'd you do in Puerto Escondido?
Well, I did teach yoga. But that was like because I just couldn't stop teaching yoga. Like I was just like so driven to inspired to teach.
So
yoga
you had found yoga by this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't want to stop teaching. But that wasn't what I was doing. That was just like I kept doing it. I found opportunity. Back then, like yoga still wasn't really a thing.
Now I think there's a bunch of stuff like that down there.
I'm sure, but there was not. And so I was literally the yoga teacher for the town.
For Puerto Escondido.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is an international language school. I'm sure it's still there. And I was with my partner at the time and we were the directors. We were like running the school.
You ran a school down there?
Yeah.
Wow. So you had an official jobby job.
I did. Yeah. Off the record.
It was off the record?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, it like I wasn't like getting paid through like a proper Mexican situation. I was just there on a tourist visa,
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like you didn't have a work visa or anything.
No.
But you were working as the director of an international school teaching kids.
I wasn't teaching because the teachers were teaching Spanish.
Right.
To adults.
You were help running it.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. I went to
and I lived on the beach.
And
I surfed every day.
You stayed beach. That's the Pacific that you went to.
Yeah.
That is such a cool town. I loved it. I stayed there for a little while, not a couple weeks, but I loved it. It was so cool.
But yeah, so that's what I did. I the plan was to move, not to Mexico, but the plan was to move. Originally we were going to move to Seattle, but and that's what we ended up doing, like traveling and then living there. And then, long story short, like things shifted and I came back and I've been back ever since. But when I came back, like I kind of jumped back into teaching yoga and that's how like I got on the path to teaching full time.
How long were you in Puerto Escondido?
About a year or so. Like the whole thing was like a couple years. In the middle, I actually lived in an ashram in California.
What?
But that was brief.
What was that like? Is it bunk beds?
I had my own room. It was a suite. Like I shared the bathroom with someone on
Jack
the
and
other
Jill
side.
bathroom, yeah.
But I don't know. It was like I think I went in like I was still really young. I was still in my 20s and pretty impressionable. and like very wide-eyed about yoga, like it was still a pretty new-ish relationship.
Okay.
I think a lot of people who are newer to yoga have this like, big open-hearted passion. Not that I don't now, but it's like any relationship. Like I've been in this relationship for decades.
Right.
So it evolves, right? It's not the same kind of it's a different kind of love than it was when it was newer. And I think I went in with like an expectation of like what it was going to be like, or it was going to be kind of magical, or like people were going to behave a certain way, but they're just people, it wasn't really, I mean, it was a good experience. It was great, but
what was your day-to-day like there?
it was pretty mellow. Like I was working, but like my schedule was pretty light. Like I didn't have a lot of work to do.
You worked for the ashram?
Yeah. Like it was part of a program where it was sort of like work trade, like you could stay there and live there and kind of experience life there and work. But yeah, I mean, it was in Northern California in the Redwood Forest. Like it was,
That sounds nice.
it was not bad. It's a nice place to like develop and meditate and, I did party quite a bit, in my 20s, so there was none of that. So
you were done with your drugs and alcohol and
well,
party phase?
I don't know if I was done, but
Maybe not,
I had definitely like slowed down a lot. And so, it was a good environment for self-exploration.
Mm-hmm. What is an ashram? I know a monastery is to Buddhism. What is ashram is?
It's like an intentional community where people are living a yoga lifestyle.
Okay.
And in this situation, there was a guru. He has since passed, so I don't really know. Like, I know the ashram is still there, but I don't really know like what's going on. I haven't looked into it or anything.
Okay.
But
they're following the sutras. Oh yeah, you said they had a different thing.
We were, when I was there, we were studying a different text. But I mean, it's people that are there because they want to be in an environment that is like a yoga lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a temple,
That had to have been really a beautiful or magical experience for you.
It was. I have a little bit of like, I'm sure there's a word for it, but like a longing for wishing I had like photographs or videos or anything. I have nothing because, we just didn't really do that back then.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to remind yourself of those moments with some kind of pictures?
Yeah, like I'd like to look and remember through like a visual, not just in my mind, but there's
you could probably visit the ashram. Huh?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I'm sure it's super different now, being that Baba Hari Das is no longer there, but
that's cool. Living on an ashram, I can't imagine what that'd be like. But what you said about them being normal people, it like rings true. I remember I was talking to, I don't remember who it was, but one of my guests here about how all the normal human things play out in these monasteries. So people argue over things, and it's all the human conflicts and challenges occur there. It's not like because there's a spiritual
overtone.
Yeah, that doesn't make everybody like zenned out all the time. They still want what they want and struggle.
Yeah, part of my work was like with trash, like collecting trash and sorting through trash and stuff like that. And I remember like going through the recycling and seeing like a couple of beer bottles and a wine bottle. And I was like, oh, because like you're not supposed to be drinking. But there were people who like had homes on the property. Like they're going to do whatever they want.
Right. Right. Oh, goodness. What happened after the ashram and the
well, that was
Escondido?
Right before I like settled in Puerto Escondido. So we traveled for a while, and there was like a gap of time before we were going to settle into that job. And so I ended up going to California, and then and then I traveled for a little while down to Chiapas and Guatemala.
Oh yeah, I've been there. Chiapas and Guatemala. Did you go to Semuc Champey?
I don't. That doesn't sound familiar. Is it an archaeological site?
It is a natural limestone land bridge out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. No.
That's beautiful. Guatemala is beautiful. I
Yeah.
did like going to those Mayan ruin sites like Tikal. I guess Tikal was in Guatemala. And Palenque is in
Yeah.
Chiapas. I went there.
But yeah, after all that, I moved back here, and that
To
was
Austin? With your partner?
no. I traveled by myself
Yeah.
at that point.
And then when you got back here, what'd you do?
I got a retail job and started teaching yoga.
Retail job and yoga.
And I just really dove into teaching yoga.
Full time.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually.
The retail job was obviously because I needed to pay my bills, but eventually I quit the retail job.
And yoga's gotten bigger and bigger, hasn't it? It's a more common practice. Like you could do
Yeah.
yoga in Boise, Idaho.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you were saying about Puerto Escondido, right? Or yeah, it's interesting. There really are kind of yoga studios everywhere nowadays.
Yeah. What do you think makes you guys unique? You, Holly, and Mary, and Studio
The studio,
Satya, yeah.
one, I think, and I hear this reflected back from students all the time. One I think is that we have a really high standard of who we hire to teach. And so everyone on our team is very experienced, and confident, which I think isn't necessarily the case in some studios. And then two, I think, is the variety of classes. Like I mentioned, nowadays in the United States, kind of vinyasa yoga or flow classes are what I think people perceive as yoga. And a lot of studios are just flow studios. That's every class is that. There's no variety or a minimal variety. Whereas, we have not only a large variety, but family classes. So literally no matter what age you are, you can practice,
Yeah.
babies, kids, teenagers, or we have tween classes, but, along with the variety and the, knowledgeable, experienced teachers, I think that I would like to think that we're working to be inclusive. So some people might not feel comfortable practicing in other studios. And again, just reflected back to me, I hear that people are comfortable practicing in our studio.
Inclusive meaning what kind of?
Maybe someone's injured, or maybe there's they're in a different experience with their body where they might feel intimidated taking a yoga class.
So accommodating. You guys accommodate.
Yes,
and include.
that too. Both. Yeah.
I pulled up my phone because I was just going to read a couple of the classes just so folks could get an idea of the diversity. There's vinyasa, of course, crawlers and toddlers, which is like kiddos, hatha and sound, flow and meditation, therapeutic yoga for resilience, candlelight flow, baby and me, slow flow, gentle hatha, functional strength, prenatal yoga. Let's see. There is kids yoga, yoga for tweens, flow and restore, yoga for stress management.
Yeah, so I think that in and of itself makes us pretty unique.
Yeah, I think so.
But I mean, there are other reasons, like the fact that we are locally owned. It's just us running the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, that exists in other places, but it's not common in other studios. But it's not common.
What, that it's locally owned and operated?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a female-owned business.
Yep, women-owned business.
Yeah.
And there's something else that popped into my head, but then left. There was one more thing that I was like, oh, that makes us unique as well. Oh, well, just that, we're not a fitness studio. And again, that's not entirely unique. There are other studios in Austin that are not fitness studios, but I think that's more common, right? That yoga studios nowadays are really honed in on fitness and trying to offer a fitness opportunity for people, which is not what we're really doing. You might have that experience in some of our more active classes, for sure.
What are you honing in on?
Doing our best to maintain the roots of yoga,
Mm-hmm. Which is that cessation of
the fluctuation of the mind. Yeah, but just like honoring that it's not a Western practice. It
right.
is because we are Westerners and we live here, so therefore it is. But that's not where the tradition comes from. And so just trying to keep that in mind, right? That we're borrowing a lot of these ideas and trying to do our best to steward them,
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at the thing, it's not just yoga up there, it's meditation and what's the third thing? In your byline it says I have it right here. It's yoga, meditation, and community.
In my head I was like, community, right? But
yeah, it's community.
I was like, but how embarrassing would that be if I said the wrong thing?
Oh my goodness. I'd be like, no more co-owner for you. I'm the co-owner now. I don't know. It'd be fun. But yeah, community's a big part of it.
Huge.
Y'all got the book club. There's like a bike ride. You're crescenting a bike rack.
We have a social bike ride coming up.
I'm going to go on that bike ride. Cool. That sounds like fun.
Me too.
I love bike rides. There's
so that's a big component. And I think that definitely makes us unique.
Yeah. Community's huge.
Yeah.
Do they call it Sangha in yoga too, or is that just a Buddhist thing?
I mean, I think there's some crossover. I've heard it when I was growing up in yoga called Kula.
Kula.
But
I like that. Kula.
But yeah, I mean, we know everybody's name.
Yeah.
Back to Cheers, right?
Yeah. Cheers. Yeah. Where everybody knows your name.
We know everybody's name.
And they're always glad you came.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I noticed is like at the beginning of most classes, if not all of them, there's this kind of around the room. What's going on for everybody? What are you guys needing?
Yeah.
And I've done it a bunch. So it's like pretty much the same thing every time. Shoulders, hips. I want some balance or core. It's like it's a small number of things people say, and they say it every time for the most part. But I don't think it's about that. It's about giving people that opportunity to connect and share and
feeling heard.
And
knowing that like we as teachers are there to support you.
And gonna modify. I imagine when you get those things, Holly like writes them down and that's gonna make its way into the series of exercises that we do or movements that we do. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and again, like going back to, having experienced teachers, like that's not something that a newer teacher would be ready to do necessarily. Maybe some, but
How do you think I could this digresses or returns back to an earlier conversation, but I'm just wondering through my connection with you guys and a practice, a regular practice with y'all, I wonder how I could demonstrate the value of that or the change in my body and my mind after X number of months.
I mean, what do you notice that is different for you?
I get deeper in them folds for sure. Like my flexibility's increased already.
That's great.
And it hasn't been that long.
Yeah.
And I already noticed when you would first say bring your knee in to touch your nose, I couldn't touch my nose. That's hard to touch your nose with your knee. And now I can do it.
That's awesome.
I touch my nose with my knee, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. It's when I do something that I couldn't do before, it's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the stillness of the mind part, like fluctuations of the mind. I love the Shavasana. I'll say that. It's gotten to be something I look forward to in every class.
It's good stuff.
At the beginning, I would they'd ask for, everybody asks, oh, if you want to do this other pose before you get into Shavasana, now's your time. And I would do one.
You would stall.
I would do Happy Baby or do something else. And now I'm like, I just want to do Shavasana.
Yeah.
Let's just get there.
I know. That's how I am too. Whenever I take someone else's yoga class, like they'll be like, and now do this. I'm like, no, I'm done.
No, we're chilling now.
Yeah.
How do you think you're unique among the three, you, Mary, and Holly? How do you view you guys as different styles or?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I mean, I know Mary, for a good amount of time recently has been working with nervous system
Mm-hmm.
stuff that she's been studying. Um, and, hence the class you mentioned, the yoga for therapeutic yoga for resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's different for sure. I mean, I don't know. It's like I can tell you like how they're different from me, but it's hard for me to say how I'm different from
How
them.
you're unique, yeah.
Yeah,
You don't play music in your classes.
I do, just not in all my classes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
in some classes I do,
I
and some I
at
don't.
first I thought it was odd, but now I like it.
Yeah, I don't. I do play music in some of my classes. It depends on the
Karlie plays
class.
music in some of her classes.
But not all of them.
Right.
Yeah, that's a conscious choice
Yeah.
for sure.
It's that stripping away the senses. It's like one less thing to distract
Yeah.
myself from the exercise and the experience.
Yeah. And I think that there are so few quiet spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're so difficult to find. And so I use music in some of my classes for various reasons, but the ones that don't have music, that's part of like if people don't want to practice without music, that's okay. They don't have to come to that class, right? There are other classes of mine they can take, or they can take someone else's class. But in those classes that don't have music, that's an opportunity to be in a quiet space.
I agree. I think that's cool. I like it. What other? Well, so that might not be a totally unique thing. What do you think is unique? How do you view yourself?
That's the hard part.
That's
I'm
the
like,
hard
I
part.
don't know how I view myself. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I've had people like give me feedback that say like your classes are, different from anyone else's, or that, but I don't know why.
They're not specific.
I'm not that I remember.
Your instruction is very specific, and your voice is staccato. Like it's like almost like the words are really you're choosing them.
I've heard that
very
before.
purposefully.
I've heard that exact thing before from other students.
You have?
Yeah. And I had a improv teacher say, like unrelated, right? On stage. That I was very precise.
Yes,
precise. He was like, your words are like a knife.
Exactly.
But that was just my performance language, not my teaching. So that must have something to do with my personality.
Have you heard that saying that the way you do one thing is the way you do all things?
Yeah. But when I'm in teaching, that's intentional.
Yeah.
Right? Or on stage, it's not. But yeah, I'm definitely aiming for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And to a degree, precision, right? Not like to get it right, but to help support people in their embodiment.
That's about that thoughtful and intentional kind of like you're sharing these instructions to get us to a place.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you were giving me directions to Studio Satya from my house, I want the clarity. I want to know, where do I turn left? Where do I turn right? I don't want any noise in that. And that your instructions are that way. Yeah. Everybody gives great instructions. But yours are unique in the cadence of them.
Yeah, so maybe that's how I'm different. Because everything you're saying I've heard from other people before. Yeah. So
do you have a yoga voice?
I would like to think that I don't.
But you do.
But you think I do?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
You probably have.
I don't love yoga voice. Like it's very off-putting to me when I hear it in other people.
You don't like yoga voice?
No. It's like kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit. But so I would like to think that I don't.
You probably get a Shavasana voice though.
Yeah, because it's got to be quiet. I'm quiet.
It has to be kind of a whispered tone.
Yeah,
and it's like we're chilling people out. It's like nah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I hope I don't.
You probably have a yoga voice. What we should do is we'll have this example of
and then you're
Karlie's
gonna put in
voice,
a clip of me teaching,
and then see what do we? Does she have a yoga voice or not? Yoga voices are all right.
Well, I'm glad you think so.
You don't. They're cringe for you.
Yes.
Where do you do yoga? Do you do yoga at the studio, or when you practice yoga, what does it look like? Or do you get that experience through the teaching experience? Because I know you.
Not so much. Again, like everything's changed since I've had a kid, but it's like I'm just trying my best to find balance and everything, but
Yeah.
all the time. Sometimes, like given how much time I have, I'll just drop into random classes around town, which I find interesting and fun. Otherwise, I practice at home, sometimes by myself, and often with my teacher who has an online platform. So.
Oh, that's cool. You'll just drop in at yoga studios all over town.
I mean, maybe not all over because I hate driving.
Yeah, me too.
It depends on my mood and my schedule. But yeah.
Like Black Swan?
I haven't been to Black Swan in over a year.
Practice?
Yes.
I like that place.
Yeah.
Where else? Yoga East?
I've actually never been there, not for any particular
It's pretty
reason.
cool. I've been there.
But yeah.
Dharma Yoga?
Dharma,
I love
Sukha,
Keith, yeah. I've never been to Sukha.
I've taught at all these places too,
You
like
have.
in the past. And
Karlie's she's been in the Austin yoga community a long time.
Yeah.
You were at Yoga, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've practiced at Wild Heart recently.
I've never been to Wild Heart. Yeah.
Yeah, so just, kind of wherever.
Making the rounds.
Yeah, I mean, there are some studios that I'm curious about, but I just won't deal with like driving or parking,
Yeah. I don't want to deal with driving or parking either. Yeah. Anything else that we haven't gone over that you'd like to? About your life or about yoga or about the studio? Or anything. Is there a pose that you feel like you'd like to express before you do Shavasana for the interview?
Oh, I was like, what? Oh, that's funny.
Is your heart calling to a pose?
I'm ready for
right
Shavasana.
Now? You are? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, and it's almost like an extension of the conversation I've had with you in class, where it's not as back and forth, but like being a member of your classes, being able to experience your mentorship from a yoga perspective and to follow those flows or those experiences. This is just another kind of vantage point into that.
That's great.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This has been Phails with Karlie Lemos. I slurred that whole last name that time. Lemos.
It was close. Definitely close enough for jazz.
Jazz hands. And this has been Phails at Yoga Philosophy. And wave it, everybody. Yeah. This has been a lot of fun.
I agree.
You guys go check out Studio Satya and go do some yoga, right?
Why not?
Why not? Do you handshake, fist bump, hug, high five?
I do all those things. It just depends on.
What do you want to do now?
I like high fives.
Let's high five it. Bam. That's a wrap.
Great.
We did it.
That was really fun.
Heck yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.